Hello, in this video I'm going to go beginning to end on how to make, actually this one chart I've got 3 different patterns I did with it, and so I'll kind of go over all 3. I did a felted rice neck warmer with the little snowflake motif on it. I did a felted beer koozie. And of course I've already felted it up, so I have a picture I'll stick in there of a wine bottle koozie. All of it is done on the same loom with the same pattern. The only difference is really how long you make it. Now the yarn I'm using for this is, where's my other piece? I lost the other paper. But it was basically the thickest, cheapest wool, oh here it is, that I could find. Because with felting you want to use a pure fiber. So it's the Patton's Classic Wool, the roving wool, and I got it in plum and Aran. Plum and like an off-white are the colors I used. Now I will let you know that with felting it, the dye in the plum, some of that does come out in the water. And you'll see it did bleed a little bit, but it still turned out really nice. I rinsed it really good when I got done felting it, and it rinsed out a lot of that extra dye. Now the main concept behind this is this chart right here, which this one has some alterations that will be put into it before it's in the PDF. But the full PDF, the description for it, the link to it's going to be in the description below. But you don't have to use my chart. You can do any of these patterns with your own charts. You can make up your own chart. You can go just do an internet search for whatever design you want and just say knitting charts. So these are like snowflakes. So snowflake knitting charts or Christmas knitting charts or whatever you want. And you can actually find a lot on there for free that you can just print out yourself. The only thing you need to do is, I'm using the 3/8 gauge 40 peg adult sock loom from premiumknittinglooms.com. So whatever loom you're using, you want to make sure your chart is however many pegs. So this is a 40 peg loom. So this chart is numbered 1 to 40 on the bottom. Now to do the design as I wanted to, I actually had to number it 1 to 52. There's 52 rows going this way. But I made the chart to where it will actually, it's seamless. So the pattern just rotates all the way around without it stopping, so you can't really tell where the start and stop is to it. That part can be a lot more difficult to do, which I plan on converting this chart to the 56 peg loom too, so that if you get the PDF, you'll have a chart that'll work for either loom. Now the yarn I'm using is is it a bulky or super bulky? Let me look. It is, I'm thinking it's considered a number 5. Yeah, number 5. It's a bulky weight yarn. So if you're using it on this one, you can still use the bulky weight yarn if you want. It's just going to be a lot more difficult. The pegs are way too close. I would use a worsted weight yarn if you can find one that's pure, a pure fiber. You need like pure wool or something like that so that it will felt. Which I'll get into how to felt later in the video. But if you are, first of all, you need to decide if you're going to felt this or not. If you're going to felt it, then when you start for your cast on, all you need to do is the E-wrap cast on, which you just wrap like this all the way around, and you will rarely see me use this cast on, but this is one of those projects where it's all going to shrink up anyway, so it really doesn't matter. Oops. I'm holding it very awkwardly. It would help if I had a tensioner right now and was using it, but this isn't a project that you really need a tensioner, just this cast on part right here, which you would just E-wrap all the way around, and then you would go back just to do the E-wrap cast on, You would wrap a second time all the way around, take your loom tool, take those bottom loops over the top, and that is the cast on that you would want to use if you are doing anything that's felted. If you are doing like if you want to do a koozie for like a wine bottle, instead of, you know, this type of bottle, you would want to do a chain cast on. And for that, you would take your working yarn, twist, and do a pull string. You want to make sure it'll pull, and it does. Put your working yarn behind and tighten that up. And then you would take the loop behind the next one, tighten it up, loop behind the next one, tighten it up. I have another video that will show you how to do this if you need a little more instruction on it. But that's what you do all the way around for the chain cast on. If you're not felting it, that's the cast on I suggest. Okay, so I just did just a real quick E-wrap cast on for this, and then you want to push that down. Now before we really get going, I'm going to go ahead and just take the white and hook it around the little knot there so that the white's already hooked in right next to the burgundy or whatever color you want to call it. I think it was called plum. Okay, now I got to talk about how you read these charts. Okay, like I said, it has 40, it goes to 40 this way. This represents the pegs on the loom. So this is a 40 peg loom. So each one of these is a peg. So the one here, one is peg 1, peg 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and it just goes like that until you get to 40. As you see, if you would take and fold it like this, it actually will match up and the design will keep going. That's what I was talking about earlier. You got to decide what two colors you're using. Of course, I'm using the plum and the white. And you got to decide if you want this one. I did the burgundy or plum, whatever, as my empty squares. All of the X's are the white. And this entire thing is done with just the E-wrap, except for the cuff at the top. If you want to put that on it, if you're doing a koozie, I would add this on it. It's just this a rib stitch, just E-wrap 1, purl 1, E-wrap 1, purl 1, all the way around. But to do this, okay, so we'll do like our first row. If our X's are white and our empty squares are the plum, we will have 3 stitches that are white, 3 stitches that are plum, 3 stitches that are white, and then we've got quite a big space here. It's like 15 stitches here. That'll just be the plum. So I'm going to sit that down. I'm going to try to sit that where you can still sort of see it while I show you how to wrap it. Okay, so we're starting with the white. So we'll just pull the white yarn up, which we have 3. Zoom this in a little bit. Try to get all this situated. Probably should have thought of this in advance. Okay. Okay, so we've got 3 that are white. So 1, 2, 3. Put that down. You want to pull the burgundy yarn over top because that will kind of hold it. It won't come undone. We got 3 of the other color. Go back to the white. Oops. 3 of the white. So we got 3, 3, 3. And now we got 15 of this burgundy color. So if I just wrap 15 pegs and then go back to the white, we're going to have these real long strings in between. I can show you a different project I've done. And if you have the real long strings, those are called floats. Now I have one here that I did pretty long just so I could show right here. Those will get stuck on things and your stitches will be loose. So you don't really want to go any more than 3 stitches or 3 pegs without locking this in. And how we lock this in is you just twist the white around the burgundy. Alright, if I hold it down like this, it'll be easier to do. Hopefully you can see it okay this way. So I twist the white around the burgundy and then tighten it and just keep going. It doesn't matter which way you twist it. So I'm going to kind of work this first row with you so you can get an idea of how it works. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Oops. I'm sorry, this is so awkward to do on this stand. I'm just going to have to move that out of the way. I'm used to holding it on my lap and doing it, but you will get to where you are working with it a lot better. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And then we have 2 white, 2 of this one, and then see, and you don't have to go above it, you can go under it too. Sometimes I will switch it out if I notice my yarn's getting really twisted, but you just have to watch because that might want to come undone on you. And right now I'm right here on it. See, I just did the 3 white and the 2, and now I go back to the white for 2 more. Okay, so I go back to the white there. I pulled it over, so that's locked in. I don't have to worry about that for 2 more. And then I finish it out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with the burgundy, but I never let my floats go more than 3 stitches. So 1, 2, 3. I'm going to go ahead and twist, even though there's just 2 more there. 4, 5. That way the floats never go more than 3. If you wanted even a tighter knit, you can just don't let the floats go more than 2. And then for when you first start out, you want to double check your rows, just to, like, lock it in. You can wrap it around that or whatever, but then double check your rows before you go on. And something that will help, because this can get very, very confusing, because the rows are 40 stitches long, so it's easy to be confused and think you're on the right row and actually start a couple rows on top or something like that. I suggest just taking a piece of paper and just a couple bobby pins or paper clips and just blocking out the row you're working on. When it's done, go up to the next row. And just do that all the way up until it's done. Now, this isn't what will be in the PDF. The PDF will have a printable version of this that's probably going to have to be in a couple pieces just to fit it on the paper correctly. What I suggest is actually taking, if it's in more than one piece, actually printing it out and pasting it together, like cutting it out and putting it together as one big piece. That makes it a lot easier to just follow the diagram in your head. But this right here helped me so much, because when I first started it, I screwed up a bit. But then I just got to where I had my row counter, so I was keeping track of my rows. And then I would just move it up after each row, and that would block out, and I would see exactly what I was doing. So that's really all there is to it. Like, your next row, you would start with 4 white. And the same rule still goes. It's floating back here. So I would wrap, well, it's 4 white, so it automatically wraps. So that's only 2 in between. But if the white was back here and it started with like a few burgundy ones, you'd want to twist it and lock that in and just make sure it follows along like how it did on this long stretch. Because it's a thick yarn on a small gauge loom, so it's going to blend in. Now, if you do this on some other looms, if your yarn, you can see if I pull that tight, you can see where the floats are back there where I twisted them. But it's one of those things you don't really notice. Like, I haven't had anybody see this and really say anything about those yet. Which, that's a different pattern, and there's a different video for that one too. That one just had an example where I could show you the extra long float on it. Sizing. Okay, if you are wanting to do this pattern without felting it for a wine bottle koozie, you want to make it about 8 inches, well, about 7 inches long. Then cut the burgundy yarn, go to just the white, and if you aren't felting it, I would do E-wrap 2, purl 2, E-wrap 2, purl 2, which I'll show you real quick how to do both those stitches. I would do like 5 rows of the purls. Alright, so that's really all there is to just following the chart. The chart is the hardest thing. You just have to make sure you are on the right row. And you don't have to twist the yarn over or twist it under when you're doing your leads. You know, that stuff really doesn't matter. It's just your E-wraps. You know, it'd be like, your, oops, like E-wrap, and then you can twist it like this and go. Or you can twist it like that. It doesn't matter. Same thing with when you're changing yarn. You can twist it on top. I like to twist it on top just because that locks that one before. Or you can twist it underneath. I do switch it out as I'm going because the yarn will tangle as you're working with it if you keep doing it in the same direction. But if you want to make, now this is how to do the chart. The rules are now, not the rules, but depending on the project you are wanting to make, if you are wanting to do a wine bottle koozie, you don't need to felt that. It actually will fit perfect in just a normal size wine bottle. You want to do your chart until it gets to about 7 inches long. And then just cut your burgundy yarn, just stick that down in there. You can take a crochet hook and kind of weave it through later. And then just take your white and do a rib stitch. You want to E-wrap 2. And then you will purl 2. And E-wrap 2. And purl 2. And do that for the entire brim, which I go over that later. And then I also go over the cast off you want to use. Now, if you want to do a felted bottle holder, I mean, you can put like a can of pop or something in that. You have to be careful about how you felt it because it will shrink up to where it will shrink up a lot tighter than it needs to. For that, you want to make it, where's my tape measure at so I can tell you guys. My tape measure has disappeared, so I will just, oh, there it is. Cat's laying on it. You want to do that about 6 inches long. If you are hand felting it. Now, when I was told how to felt, I was told to do everything double the length. Now, for this, it shrank in diameter, but it didn't really shrink in length. So, actually what I did is this I actually cut. I didn't finish the bottom off, but you can see it felted, and I just straight up cut it. And that's not unraveling or anything because it's all felted together. But that's very, very warm. For the neck warmer, I just basically went until I used up almost the whole spool. I actually went through the chart 4 times. So I went from bottom to top with this chart 4 times. Then I did my cast off. And if you're using it for the neck warmer, you can do any cast off you want to. You can do, you can just do the cast off I show later in the video for the bottle if you want. It doesn't matter because then you felt it. You got to make sure it is completely dry. And I've already warmed it up and I filled it with sage and lavender in with my rice, and it smells, just holding it, like my hands now smell like sage. You're going to be using your loom tool to do this cast off, which what you're going to do is you're going to take your working yarn and go pull it down through the second peg. Let me zoom in on this so you can see a little better. Working yarn down through the second peg, up through the first. You're going to skip a peg, go down through that second one, and go back one and go up. You repeat this until you get down to the very end. You're always going to be skipping one peg and then going backwards and coming up. And go up and go down, go backwards and go up, skip one, go down, backwards one, go up, skip one, go down, backwards one, go up. Now we've done all the pegs. Now what I do is on that last one I go down through it again just so the yarn is coming off that last peg. That locks that in. At this point you just take everything off the loom, weave your ends in. I like to use a crochet hook to weave my ends in, and whatever your project is complete. Okay, so once you have felted this, if you choose to felt it, once that is done, you can, after it's dried, for us to do the rice. Now another thing, of course, like the little beer holder, which when it's felted, it is so thick, you can actually just cut through it and that's not going to unravel if you wanted to make yours a little extra long and have like a beer koozie for it out of it too, or a can koozie, whatever. Now, before we fill it with rice, we got to sew the edge closed. The only problem is that right there is too thick to go through a sewing machine. At least my sewing machine it is. So what I'm doing is we got to sew it with old just straight needle and thread, and I've just got a burgundy thread that's going to just blend in, I'm hoping. So you want to fold that down in. Now you have to sew this really tight because rice is tiny. But all I'm doing is I'm going to go probably 3 or 4 times just up and down this, sewing this closed so that I can try to get all of it. And then once you fill it up, you will do the same to the other end. But that's all you do, just back and forth all the way down, then go up, then go down. Just do it repeatedly and try to have them close together. Like my first pass down, I'm not doing it too close just because I'm trying to get that to stay closed. Now, see, now it's where it'll stay closed. I can do them a little closer together, and I'm tightening it up after each time. You just gotta be careful not to tighten it too much that you break the thread. So get that sewed up and then we'll fill it with the rice. To put the rice in, I just got a funnel, and I actually took and mixed some sage and lavender in with the rice just to kind of give it an aromatherapy effect. But you can use dryer sheets, you can use oils. There are all kinds of things that you can use. Hold on a minute. There are all kinds of things that you can use to scent it if you want to. So you just keep filling it with the rice until it is as full as you want it. Now you don't want it super stiff, which actually I think that'll be good. Just get the rest of that to go down in there. And then you will fold the ends in and sew it, which I'll show you how to do that in a minute. Before you sew the end up, you want to make sure that you have a good amount of bend to it. And I want to fold it so that it lays the same way. And what you do, you just fold it in. And just like before, it's going to be too thick to go through a sewing machine. So you fold it in, you get your needle threaded again, just like before. And run it through. I can smell the sage and the lavender already, which if you do herbs, you want the herbs to be dried first. Which that was just some herbs we have grown outside, so they were already dried and ready to go. So you sew it up the exact same way as you did the other end, and you want to make a couple passes just to make sure you get it in there good enough. Now over time, this should completely felt itself just through being used and close itself off. But you can see after each stitch I'm pulling it tight so that it is locked in. So go ahead and close that end up, and then all you have to do is you just stick it in the microwave as is for like 4 or 5 minutes, and the rice will get warm, the wool will help hold that heat in, and you'll have a nice aromatherapy neck wrap. That's really all I have for this pattern. I know you probably expected me to go into a lot more detail, but the main thing to get through is how to do this chart and how to do it to where it's not just a huge headache. And big suggestion is just block off those other rows so you can only see the row right here is what you're working on, so you don't accidentally get messed up. Which you can take a pin and hold the paper in place. You can use a pin, works good because then you can still slide it up and it's still going to sort of hold in place while you're working on it. You can use paper clips, bobby pins, anything really. It's not it's not a complicated thing to do. It's just you need to watch the floats, which are the strings on the back here. You don't want them to run for more than 3 stitches at a time. And let me take the koozie off this and I'll show you what the inside actually ends up looking like. See how thick this is? Because this actually ended up being longer than I needed it to be. So if you like the length that I used here, then you really only need to do 3.5 times on this chart, which is about, yeah, 3.5 is where I cut it off. But this is very, very, like, I can't really stretch it. It doesn't have any stretch. Now, long-wise, there's still a little bit of give, which if I would have kept felting it, that would have went too. But my big thing was making it thick enough to where the rice wouldn't wiggle its way through it. I'm sure down the road, maybe just through wear and tear, I might end up with a piece of rice here and there getting its way through. But that's a lot for the rice to wiggle through. And I'll see if I can even turn it inside out. You can see this is what the inside of it looks like. And there wasn't a single float that went more than 3 pegs. So it all felted in just really nicely. You can kind of see the design in the back side of it. Okay, this is all I have for this pattern. I really hope that this is helpful. Of course, you can get the PDF through premiumknittinglooms.com. The link to that is in the description below. If you just want to take the tips that I've taught you today and go and make your own charts, that is awesome too. But if you do need any help, just let me know. You can email me, which my email is in the description below. If you need help, that's an easier way to get a hold of me than leaving a comment below, because a lot of the correspondence I do is actually done through my phone instead of on my computer, and the app on the phone doesn't let me reply to video comments as easy as it is for me to reply to an email. So do feel free to contact me with any questions or comments, and thank you for watching this video, and don't forget to subscribe.